I think we all understand that we are in an unprecedented moment, not only in our lifetimes, but in the modern history of this country, perhaps the history of this country in general, because we're dealing with two types of unprecedented events. Number one, obviously, the coronavirus pandemic, which, according to the experts, will end up taking the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans and infecting millions of Americans. And as a result of that pandemic, the economy is now collapsing in front of our eyes. As I think all of you know, in the last 2 weeks alone, some 10 million people have applied for unemployment benefits, and that is only a fraction of the people who are truly unemployed. So we got those two major crises simultaneously eating at each other, and we have to address them. So I want everybody to know that I am working with other members of Congress on what amounts to an unprecedented piece of legislation to deal with this unprecedented crisis. And essentially what it suggests, the essence of this legislation, is that it will be more effective to prevent the collapse of our economy than to pick up the pieces once the economy collapses. And what that means, in my view, and what will be in this legislation, is that we guarantee the paychecks of every American worker who has lost his or her job. Now, it's not a radical idea, frankly. It is a radical idea, but it's not a new idea. It's what's going on around the world. It's going on in Germany, the UK, Denmark, Norway. Other countries are doing that. That the way to maintain the economy is to make sure that people continue to have their paycheck, even if they are working at home, even if they are not working at all. And when this crisis is over, and it will be over, people can then go back to work. The second thing that we have got to do, and I should tell you that a provision in the recently passed stimulus package did that for the airline industry. The airline industry now is completely underwater. Very few people are on planes. And what we put in there are many billions of dollars to guarantee that 2 million workers in the airline industry will continue to have their paychecks even when they're not working through September. And that is exactly what we have got to do for every worker in America. That's maybe the most important thing that we can do. Second of all, what we have got to do is to make sure that all of our people during this crisis, and everybody knows I'm a strong proponent for Medicare for all, but you ain't going to get Medicare for all in an emergency piece of legislation. But what we can and should get into it is the guarantee is that everybody in America will have all the health care they need during the crisis without any out-of-pocket expense. So if you're uninsured or underinsured, Medicare will fill in the gaps. If you have private insurance, but you have a deductible that you can't afford to pay, Medicare will be there. Medicare will be there to help you pay for the prescription drugs. Thirdly, what obviously we have to do is maintain our healthcare infrastructure, which is now under terrible, terrible assault. And that is, as all of you know, there are doctors and nurses who are now coming down with the virus because, unbelievably, they don't have the masks, the gowns, the gloves they need. We don't have the enough ventilators that we need. President of the United States must be forced to use the Defense Production Act to tell the private sector, who will be well compensated, that they must produce the products that we need right now to protect our medical personnel. We don't need more socks and underwear now. What we do need are masks and gloves and gowns. Furthermore, I worry very much that as we speak, there are millions of Americans right now who are not getting a paycheck, who are worrying about how they're going to feed their family, and we need to provide emergency food to millions and millions of families who otherwise would go hungry. Also, if we're going to maintain the social infrastructure of America, we have to protect states and we have to protect cities. And right now, states and cities are running out of money because their tax revenue has substantially declined. They don't have the revenue. They're not going to pay the police officers, the EMT people that are needed, the workforce that is needed to carry on during this crisis. So we need substantial help for states and cities and hospitals. And lastly, certainly not least, we need to make it clear that people are not going to be thrown out of their apartments, thrown out of their homes because of the current economic crisis. We need to have a freeze on rents and on mortgages if people are unemployed and cannot afford to pay those monies. So bottom line here is, in a moment in American history which is unprecedented, we are going to need a new economic emergency bill, which is also unprecedented. Will it be expensive? It sure will. But the alternative is worse. The goal right now, again, is to prevent the collapse of our economy and our healthcare system. And to do that, I've just laid out some of the necessities, some of what we absolutely need to have in it. Now, obviously, there is a ton more that has to be in it. But I will tell the president, tell Republican Senate Leader Mitch McConnell, that if they think there is not another major emergency bill coming down the pike and coming soon, they are terribly wrong. This country is in crisis. We have got to respond to that crisis. We have to protect the working families of this country, and I intend to be active in that. Thank you all very well, and please stay healthy. Take care.